think the large deficit is one. When the government is spending money like crazy, it's really hard to have a recession or a downturn because they can almost single-handedly add GDP points to the economy, especially when they run large deficits. But more to the point, to your question about what's been happening in other countries, let me first of all highlight what's been happening in the U.S. versus other countries. The third quarter GDP and the fourth quarter GDP in the U.S., these are the broad measures, they're as good as any, was 4.9% and 3.3%. These are very strong numbers. These are well above the potential of 2.5% that we think that the economy could grow at. Well, if you look at the UK, they've had 2 consecutive negative quarters. If you look at Japan, they've had consecutive negative quarters. If you look at the Eurozone or Germany, they've had contraction. Everybody seems to be contracting, and the US is running above potential. What's different? Well, as I like to say, every time there's a financial crisis or there is a recession, coming out of it, the economy changes. Change is not worse. Change is different. What we're finding is that the change that has happened in this economy is the propensity to spend in the US is much higher. In other words, from 2010 to 2020, the savings rate, to use one metric, was 6% on average during that period, meaning that for every dollar that you got in wages or in income, you spent 94 cents and you saved 6. Well, since 2022, the savings rate has been 4%. You're spending 96 cents of every dollar, not 94. That's in the US. That is not happening in the rest of the world. Consequently, the personal consumption as a percent of GDP has jumped from 67% to 69%. We're spending more money. We're buying, and this isn't just inflation. We're buying more units. We have a different attitude. In 2009, 10, and 11, when we were coming out of the Great Recession, and people looked at their brokerage statements and they saw that they went up, and they looked at the value of their house and they saw it increased, say on a Zillow estimate or something, they felt good. They needed to make sure that their savings was adequate in case there was a downturn. So what did they do when the stock market rallied? Nothing. They just felt better about things because their net worth went up. Well, in 2022, 23, and now into 24, when the stock market goes up or the Zillow estimate of your house increases, what do? We spend more money. We go on vacation. We buy more things. And what we're buying more of is goods. Goods consumption is up. Services consumption is about the same. That's the difference between why the rest of the world is contracting and the US is not. Our change in spending habits came about right after 2020. We spend more money now than we ever. How long are we going to do that? Till the next downturn. And then we'll change again. Now, why are we doing it? Well, that's one for the psychologists and sociologists to kind of figure out. But I might hazard a guess that during the COVID shutdown, the government basically mailed everybody enough money to pay for everything for a year. And so the attitude seems to be, I'm going to live my life. We call it revenge travel or doom spending, and I'm going to enjoy myself. There's a well-known Wall Street economist who was noting this trend that people are spending more money. And he rhetorically asked the question, what are they going to do when they're 62? And my answer was, worry about it when they're 61, because if they're 47, they're going to Italy is what they're going to do. And so that spending is what's not only keeping the economy high, but it's keeping a bid for services and for goods, which is why the inflation rate, I think, is sticking at around 3%. And again, you're not seeing that in the rest of the world. So when you look at a lot of the models that suggest that the U.S. should have went into recession or should have had a soft landing, and it's not having any of those, what those models are missing is that extra spending, that propensity to spend. Those models were very accurate for the rest of the world, but they're failing to recognize that there's been a change coming out of 2020 with the U.S. We spend more money right now. Units, we're buying more units. It's not just prices are up, so we have to spend more because prices are up. That's happening too. But on a real or inflation-adjusted basis, we are spending more. And I don't blame people because, to go back to the question, when you're 62, what are you going to do when there's a downturn and you're 61? I'm going to take a slow walk to the mailbox, and I expect the government to send me a big fat check to get me through the other side. Why not? That's exactly what they did the last time. So that's where I think we are with this spending. Again, this is this cycle. This cycle is more spending, and it's going to be stronger growth until this cycle ends, and then we'll change it again, and we'll see how it changes.